All right, y'all. In these sessions, we're going to be going over trading with order flow. We're going to be talking about footprint charts, market profile charts, and how to incorporate this stuff into your trading. And the goal of this is to break it down as simply and as easily to understand as possible so that you can start incorporating this information into your trading right away. Now, these sessions are meant to supplement the previous course that I've already done. So if you have not learned how to trade the basics of trading, make sure to go back and just refresh yourself on that first course, and then you can go ahead to this one. This is more of an advanced course. All right, so I want to start talking about what a footprint chart is and how we can actually incorporate this into our trading. So I'm going to be doing all my examples using a software called XOcharts. XOcharts is a very cheap, in my opinion, platform that you can use for charting. There are other alternatives out there. I'll be discussing some of those also. But all my examples are going to be using XOcharts. Now, you can do the same thing in other charting platforms, but just so you know, I will be using XOcharts. So what I have here is I have your standard chart in TradingView with hollow candles that is tracking the Bitcoin price on a 15-minute time frame. And then over here, I have the same exact thing in XOcharts. Okay, you can see the candles look the exact same. They are hollow. There's no body, there's just a border. And over here on TradingView, it's the same exact thing. These are both the live markets. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this blank chart on XOcharts and I'm going to be adding information to it as we go, explaining what each thing is so that you can kind of understand it. Because a lot of times when people look at a footprint chart for the first time, it's very complicated and they don't know what it is. So if we start off looking at a chart that we're already familiar with, I think it can help us along the way. So what is a footprint chart? First of all, a footprint chart allows you to see the amount of volume that is transacted at specific prices within an individual candlestick. In other words, a footprint chart, you can see inside each individual candlestick and determine exactly how many buy and sell orders came in at a certain price. And this allows us to know how the candle was formed. Now, what I mean by that is this. When we're looking at these candles, we see the high of the candle, the low of the candle, we see the open of the candle and the close of the candle, but we have no way to know how many individual buy and sell orders came into the market to create this candle. We also have no idea at what price those buy and sell orders came in. So if we're looking at, for example, this purple candle right here, this last candle right here before this current blue one, we know the price went down. We have no idea how many sell orders came in at this wick. We have no idea how many sell or buy orders came in down here. If we knew, for example, that even though the candle was purple, but there's a lot of buy orders coming in at the bottom of this purple candle that could potentially push the market upwards, that might change our view of the market in that time. Okay? So, why is it important to know exactly how the candle was formed? If we are able to see whether the buy and sell volume was in the candle body, in the wick of the candle, at the top or the bottom, this can help us make informed decisions about the market, especially when price comes to a significant level of support or resistance. Now, how does this compare to a regular TradingView chart? If we come to a footprint chart here, this is on XOcharts, we're going to go ahead and turn on some information, and that will show you how this will compare. So we're going to start with putting on what's known as bid and ask. Okay, bid and ask. And what this does right here, the bid and ask, is basically telling us the bids are sells and the asks are buys. Okay, this is telling us how many market sells on the left and market buys on the right came in at each individual price in this candlestick. So we know so far in this blue candlestick at the price of $57,240, we have 1.1 million market sell orders and 2.4 million market buy orders. We know down here at the wick of this blue candle, we had 1.2 million market sell orders and 1.4 million market buy orders. Okay, so we can see now that we put on some information on the chart that looking at this regular old candlestick chart, okay, just like the candlesticks we have in TradingView, we now have more information within these candles. We can see right here that in this wick of the candle, at the very high, we had 1.5 million market sell orders come in and 1.8 million market buy orders come in. We know at the very low, the close of the purple candle, we had 3.4 million sell orders come in and 1.6 million buy orders come in. Now, again, the bid-ask profile, the reason why it's called the bid-ask profile is because it's old school terms for buying and selling. If you're bidding, right, if you're on eBay and you're taking a bid, right, people are presenting a certain price to sell something at, and somebody else is asking a certain price to buy something at. So really, we're just looking at sells on the left and buys on the right. And this information, there's 3 different types of displays that you can select that will show up inside of a footprint chart. There's 3 different types of things. If you're in ExoCharts, those 3 things, you're going to come over to the top where it says text. You're going to click that. You're going to click this, and there's 3 different choices. We have volume, delta, and bid-ask. Volume, delta, and bid-ask. Now, the volume is going to give you the overall volume of buys and sells together. So right here, if we're going to look at this purple candle, we can see at the price of 57,720, there were 7.2 million overall market orders that came in. This is the Bybit chart. 7.2 million market orders, both buys and sells together, that came in at the open of this candle. Okay, this is the overall volume that was traded at a specific price within a candle. Now, this is going to be basically the same thing as if we have volume candles on a regular chart, or if we go back to TradingView, if we go ahead to our indicators and we turn on volume, okay, it's the same thing as these volume candles down here. The only difference is now we can see exactly how much volume came in at each price. Exactly how much volume came in at each price. Now, I'm sure you guys have probably seen before on the internet this type of footprint bar statistics on the bottom. I am going to go ahead and just I'm going to remove a few things right now just for the sake of this example. I'm going to delete a few different things just so that we can talk about how to interpret this volume overall. Okay, I'm going to delete all that stuff. So right here, we have on the bottom, this is the overall volume altogether. So for this one candlestick right here, this blue candle that has this long wick on the bottom, this wick on the top, and this small body, we can see right here this volume candle is telling us there's a huge spike in volume here. Down here on the footprint statistics bar, each box is telling us the total volume per candle. So right down here, this is telling me that there's 138 million buy and sell order market orders combined for this one candlestick. And then this 138 million is divided up here in the volume at each price. So out of this 138 million, 2.9 million came in at 56,970, 2.1 million came in at 57,000, 2.2 million came at 57,030, 9.3 million came in at 57,060, and if we add all these volumes together that came in at all the different price, we can see that it will add up to 138 million. So this is the total amount of volume, okay? Then the second type of information we have here is the bid-ask, all right? This is what I was showing you before. What this is doing is this is dividing the volume, the total volume, into sells and buys. So we can see right here, if we go back to regular volume, at the top of this candle, we can see that there was 1.3 million total market buys and sells together that came in at 57,600. If we go turn this on bid-ask, we can see that that 1.3 million is divided up into 300,000 sell market orders and 1 million buy market orders. So this is actually dividing the volume into buys and sells, which is very advantageous to us because it can really allow us to see how many people are market buying and how many people are market selling. This can be very, very advantageous to us if we come to a specific place of support or resistance. Now, the third type of information we will be able to see in these candles is delta. Okay, delta is basically, essentially, what is delta? We'll get more into delta in a future session, but delta is sells minus buys. Okay, sells minus buys equals the delta. So right here, we have, if we go back to the bid-ask volume profile, we have, delta is buys minus sells. Buys minus sells. If we come over here to the bid-ask profile, we see we have 1 million buys and 300,000 sells. And if we come to the delta, we can see now that we have 662,000 overall delta positive, which basically means there's 662 more buys than sells. Now, if we have negative delta, that means there's more sells than buys, right? So again, we're going to do the buys minus sells. So we come down to this negative delta candle. If we go back to the bid ask, we can see here that we had 4.5, right here we had 3 million buys. Hang on, let's find one that was negative here. We want to find one that has more sells than buys. So right here, at the price of 57330, we can see that we have 5.7 million sells and 3 million buys. So if we come back to, the delta, we can see that we have a negative 2.7 million delta, which basically means there is much more selling than there is buying. Okay, so the delta is showing you the difference in the bid-ask profile by subtracting the sells from the buys. So just to recap quickly, the volume is the total number of market transactions altogether. The bid-ask profile is showing you how many individual sells, how many individual buys, individual sells on the left, individual buys on the right. And then the delta is showing you the net amount of either buys or sells, all right, whichever is more. And you're going to be doing that by subtracting. If we go to our bid-ask profile, we're going to be subtracting the buys from the sells. So if we have 1 million buys and we have 343,000 sells, we subtract 343,000 from 1 million, and we get our delta of 662K. Okay. Again, if we come to this right here, we have 2.5 million buys. We subtract the 1.3 million sells, and that gives us a delta of 1.2 million. We come down to the fourth row there, and we have 1.1 million buys and 1.4 million sells. If we subtract 1.4 million from 1.1 million, then that gives us a negative delta of 259,000. Now, we're going to be getting into more of how to actually use this stuff later on in these sessions. This is simply just an introduction. So those are the three types of information that you can show inside a footprint chart. Okay, we have our volume, which is the total number of transactions. We have our bid-ask profile, which lets you know exactly how many sells there were and exactly how many buys there were at any given price within a candle. Okay, now the bid-ask profile is what I use the most because it's the most helpful, in my opinion, when it comes to determining where the market wants to go. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about the bid-ask profile here, and I want to now put on another chart that I have here and go to a bid-ask profile. Now before I do that, let me just kind of go over a few different options that we have here in Exo charts. Okay, first of all, up here we have the exchange and the asset that we want to use. Right here we have the time frame that we want to look at, and right here we have the tick. What is the tick? The tick is essentially the resolution that we are looking at. Okay, if we lower the tick, there will be more of these rows here. Okay, for example, right now this is the 15-minute chart on 60 tick. If we lower the tick down to 20, we can see now that there's many more rows here in each candlestick. So basically we're just zooming in more. The lower the tick, the more zoomed in you are, right? We can see now that if we lower the tick down to like 5, now we really have to zoom in here to see this information, and it gets a little bit too hard to handle. So I usually like to keep it, if I'm on a 15-minute chart, I'd like to keep it around 50. Okay, 50 on a 15-minute chart, or sometimes I'll go down to maybe 30 or 24, 25. You have to find the sweet spot. Okay, 15-minute chart, 30 tick, that tends to be good. Now I have to zoom back out to get it to look right again. In fact, let me just refresh this here, because refreshing it will make it go back to the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so this is the tick, this is the time frame, this is the asset right here. This is showing you how you want to have your candles look, right? This is showing if you do nothing, then you'll just literally look at normal old candles, right? Over here, the candle drop down, this is showing you what you want to see for your candlestick. You can have no candles, you can have the mono candle, right, which is our typical candles that we're used to seeing on TradingView. You can have the color candle, which is our typical colored candles you can see on TradingView. There's a whole bunch of different options here. Okay, we have this candle, the flat candle, open high, low close. I like to keep it on open high, low close, and the reason is because this will allow you to see a normal candlestick to the left-hand side of all the information that we want to look at. So for example, if I turn back on the bid-ask profile here, not the bid-ask, I'm sorry, if I turn on the bid-ask information here, right, now I can see all this stuff with the candlestick to the left. Okay, so I don't have to look at the candle overlaid on top of the information. I can just look at the candle to the left. So I always keep mine on OHLC candle. Okay, there's a whole bunch of different options here. You can put the candle in the middle like that. I like to put it over on the left. And then the text here is basically going to show you what text you want to see. You can either see volume, you can see delta, you can see bid ask, or you can see imbalance. Now imbalance is the same as bid ask. It's just showing you where there are heavy imbalances in the buys versus sells. We'll get into that more later. But I like to keep it on bid ask. And then the cluster, okay? The cluster is basically going to allow you to see different things, okay? We can look at volume profiles. Literally, this is just a volume profile, the same way we would come on TradingView and let's say have a fixed range, right? This is just a volume profile. If we're on TradingView and we turn on session volume, and it gives us a volume profile for each candle stick, right? It's basically the same as that. It's just giving you a volume profile for each individual candlestick. Right here we have a delta profile. This is basically showing you a profile of delta, meaning if there's a large purple spike in delta, that means there were many more sells than buys in this specific area. If there's a large blue spike in delta, that means there were many more, a large purple spike in delta means there were many more sells than there were buys. And a large blue spike in delta means there were many more buys than there were sells. We can turn on a bid-ask profile. Now the bid-ask profile is basically dividing the candle in half. And if we go ahead and put on our bid-ask text along with the bid-ask profile, now we can see that it's just giving us a visual here so that we don't have to look at the numbers and do the math in our head to say, how many more buys were there than sells? We can just look at this little profile and know if the purple side is bigger than the blue side, there were proportionally that many more sells than there were buys, okay? So right here we can do void is always nothing. Volume profile is showing us where there were spikes in overall volume. So the volume profile would line up with the volume text, right? And we'll be able to mix and match these. So we could have the volume text with the bid-ask profile. So we know there's 5 million overall volume, but we know that out of that 5 million, most of those were sells, right? We can mix and match these things. Or we can match them by doing volume with a volume candle. We could do volume with a delta profile, meaning out of this 5 million overall market orders, most of them we can see were sells. Or we could do a bid-ask profile, which gives us, literally how many more sells than buys. It gives us the visual, okay? So if we put on the volume profile with the volume, that lines up. We could put on the delta with a volume profile. We could put on the delta with a delta profile. So this is showing us delta with a visual and delta with a number. Or we could put on delta with a bid-ask profile. Okay, so this is letting us know that the delta is negative 2.2 million. There's 2.2 million sells than there are buys, but it's also showing us here that there were this many buys in proportion to this many sells with the visual. Okay, then we have the bid-ask text, and we can put that on with the bid-ask profile. We could put that on with the delta profile. We could put that on with the volume profile. They're just different ways to look at the same stuff, guys. Okay, that's really all it is. Now, I always like to keep mine on bid-ask, and I like to use these clusters. Okay, these clusters, they're different than profiles. The profiles will give you bars depending on how much there was. So, for example, if we have the delta profile, let's do the bid-ask profile. So we have the bid-ask profile, which is showing us in these bars, how many more sells there were than buys. We have the delta profile, which is showing us spikes in delta, similarly to a volume profile, but it's showing us only the proportions of how many more sells versus buys there were. Then you have these clusters down here. Now these clusters are basically just showing you everything in one big chunk, and based on the color of the chunk, it will tell you how much it was. So for example, when we're looking at the volume cluster, we can see that when the volume was higher, the bar here is darker, and when the volume was less, it's lighter. So it's a nice visual to tell you how much volume was coming in any specific price during this candle. Okay, now I like to use delta clusters. I like to put the text on imbalance. We're going to get into this more later, but imbalance and bid-ask are the same thing. We can look right here and see that the bid-ask profile, not the profile, but the bid-ask information is right here. And if I go ahead and put on imbalance, all it does is highlight certain areas for me. All it does is highlight certain areas for me. And what this is showing me is when there are imbalances in the price. Okay? When it's highlighted like this, if a sell is highlighted, that means there are many, many, many more sells than buys coming in. Okay? All the way at the low of this wick, we can see that there are 2 million sell orders coming in, market sells. There are literally 0 market buys. All right? Nobody is buying at this price. Everybody is selling. So that is creating an imbalance. Okay? Up here, when we come to the highs, sometimes, well, anywhere, we can see these imbalances anywhere. But, right here we can see that there are 3.9 million sell orders coming in as the price is coming up. And that creates an imbalance because the way imbalances work is we're actually, if the price is moving up, we're comparing the buy orders that came in this row to the sell orders that came in the lower one. And if the price is going down, we're comparing the sell orders that came in the current row to the buy orders that came in the previous one, right? So right here we can see 1.5 thousand sell orders came in here, and then in the very next candle we can see a massive imbalance where there are 551,000 sells coming in. And if the price is going up, we can see right here only there's 505,000 sells coming in, and then the very next candle we have 3.9 million buys coming in. So there's a very big imbalance. A lot more people are buying than selling as the price is coming up. That's what it's telling us. It's telling us as the price is coming up, a lot more people are buying than selling. And in the purple side, as the price is going down, it's telling us a lot more people are selling than buying. This is very useful because it will allow us to know if there are trapped traders under here. Okay, for example, it doesn't happen all the time, but let's see if we can find a good example of potential trapped traders. So if you see a lot of imbalances, and we're going to get into this a lot more later in the sessions, but here's a good example right here. If we see down at the lows that there are millions and millions of imbalances, we have 2.6 million more sells here, 1.9 million, 1.8 million sells, 730,000, and then we see price pushing up from there, right? Coming back up to here. We now know that all these people who shorted the bottom, they're trapped, and they either have to let their trade be in the red, or if they're using too high leverage, they're going to get liquidated, or they're going to close out their position. Okay, this can be advantageous to us because when we see that these traders are down here and price has trapped them in a losing short, okay, that means if they close their position, price is going to come up. All right, so a lot of times what will happen is they'll get trapped down here, price will come up, price will come back down, these guys will close out their shorts in a small loss or break even, and as they close out their shorts, it will give price another move to the upside. Okay, that's just an example, but that is, we're going to get into this more later. Now over here on the right hand side, this is a bid-ask profile for the entire day so far, the entire developing day. It's giving us a point of control right here. This is a volume point of control for the entire day. And then this is at the price, what was the bid-ask profile overall for that specific price for the entire day. Okay, so it's very helpful. Let's talk about these things over here on the left-hand side. First of all, we do have the settings here where you can just set up your chart, change the colors of things by clicking on color. This is how you can get beautiful blue and purple stuff like I have. Okay, we have a template right here where you can save your template or load a new template. Mark right here is giving us basically, you can set up what little things you want to see on your chart. So for me, I have the previous day value area high, previous day point of control, the previous day value area low. You can click this right here and go to marker settings and decide what you want. So for the developing day, we could turn that on and we could see the daily high, the daily point of control, the daily value area low. We can go to yesterday, right? Turn this stuff on and off. We can go to the developing week, the previous week, turn this stuff on and off, the developing month, the previous month, okay? Just so that if we're looking at our chart, we can know what was the previous day value area high. If we're going to be looking for an 80% setup, which I'll get into later in these sessions, we will be able to see easily exactly where that was. The value area, I don't know if you can see this, but the value area, if we turn that thing on, this is giving us the value area for each candlestick. So if I just make everything void right here and no text, and we'll just do a regular mono candle, we can see a value area for each candlestick. Okay, I usually don't keep that on, but if we do point of control, then we can see a point of control for each candlestick. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to do the open high, close low candles. I usually keep the value area off. I usually keep the delta cluster on. And what this is doing right now, if I put on my imbalances text, is it's showing me everything that came in, how many bids and asks, how many buys or sells came in. It's showing me whenever there's an imbalance of buyers versus sellers, and it's showing me the volume point of control for each candle. Now this can be very advantageous to us because if we know where a point of control is, right, then it's very likely that price will come back to that area and get a test. So if we go to a higher time frame, for example, the 1 hour time frame, okay, we can see here, actually sometimes it's easier to see on a half-hour chart, but for example, we can see right here that we have a point of control, 2 in a row, a very high volume node on the 1 hour time frame. Price comes up from here, price comes down to here, gets a bounce right off of this point of control, this previous high volume node, and comes back up from there. right? We can use this to trade with the point of controls, especially if they line up with a level that we already have. So if we have a level, let's say for example, we can see that we have a lot of volume spike right down here on the 1 hour chart. Okay, it's interesting to see that we got a bounce right off of that area just recently. That area, not only is it a high volume node right here, but there was confluence here. This is actually also a golden pocket level right here. So we can look for confluence with these point of controls with other levels of support and resistance on our chart. Okay, so if I go back here and I turn on my regular Bitcoin chart, we can see that we did get a bounce right off of this golden pocket right here, right around 56,900 give or take. And if we go to the 1 hour chart, we can see that right around 56,900, 57K, there was a big spike in volume. So we can say, okay, there's a high volume node right here, and it just makes it a little bit easier to see, right? That's what it does. That is what it does. And let's see here. Interesting. So I was in a long position. I think it might have gotten stopped out at my entry. Yeah. Bummer. Well, it is what it is, guys. You know, at least I took profits out of the trade. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to go over, which is sorry about that, guys. There's one more thing I want to go over, which is we got the mark, we got the value error, we got the point of control, and then right here the CPR. This is going to be showing us our profiles on the side. Okay, so we can choose whether we want a volume profile, a delta profile, a bid-ask profile, volume cluster, delta cluster, and other things like that. I like to keep it on the bid-ask profile because I can see overall how many people were buying, how many people were selling in certain areas, and where the overall daily developing day point of control is. Okay, so let's talk about some other things here. We have the volume up here, which is just going to give us standard volume candles on the bottom, just like we would have on TradingView if we turned on the indicator, just good old volume indicator on the bottom of our chart right here. Okay, what else do we have up here? We have rect. Okay, this is how many people are getting liquidated. Okay, this is how many people are getting liquidated. Up here, this is showing us shorts that are getting liquidated. Down here, this is showing us longs that are getting liquidated. It's important to know because high liquidations can cause the price to move a certain way. The FPBS, this is going to be our footprint bar statistics down here, and I'm going to get into this more in a little bit, but this is very important where instead of showing us the delta, the volume, and all that stuff in each section of the candle, we can see it for the overall candle. So right here, volume, we can see this candle here had 120 million overall buys and sells combined. Delta, we can see here that this candle overall had negative 21 million delta. This is CVD, this is cumulative volume delta, something that is very important that we will get into in another session in this course, but you can see that for the entire candle. And then this is the delta. This is very important. This is the delta per order size, okay? So the delta with people who have $500,000 or more order sizes, it will tell you, look, people with larger orders are shorting because the larger order sizes have negative delta. But then these tiny little orders here, the retail buyers who are buying orders of $7,000 or less, they're trying to long, right? So it's kind of telling us where the bigger players are putting their market orders, okay? Now, how do you set this thing up here? Well, you're going to click FPBS. You're going to click the little gear icon here, and you will actually be able to add or remove bars here, okay? So you can decide how high you want this to be. You can make it taller. You can make it smaller, okay? You can hide the zeros if you want. Over here for the volume, you can change the color and stuff like that. If you click add row, then you can decide what you want that row to be. Do you want it to be volume? Do you want it to be delta? Do you want it to be CVD? You can make it the point of control, which will tell you the point of control for each candlestick. Okay? If you're doing this on the daily time frame, it can show you the previous day point of control very easily. You could do the high and the low, okay? You could do the time, right? You could do the trades, okay? So I like to use just volume and delta and CVD. And if you click on delta, now you can go to the delta source, and basically the lower the T size delta is, that's the smaller the order size will be. So T size 1 is less than $7,000 trade size. T size 7 is greater than $500,000 trade size. Okay, so that's kind of how you're going to set this up here. You can decide what you want it to see, how you want it to look, simply by clicking on this right here. Okay, if we click on this, this is telling us, this is giving us statistics. If you click CS, this is giving us the statistics on top of the candle right here. So we can see the overall volume right here is 117 million. We can see that the overall delta right here is 15 million. And there's some other things we can look at there. If we look at D bar, this is the cumulative volume delta line. Very important for identifying powerful divergences. We're going to get into this more in a separate session. If we click on OI, this is giving us the open interest. This is showing us how many people are actually opening and closing market orders. So if open interest is going up, that means there are more people entering into the market. If open interest is going down, that means people are getting out of the market. NL and NS are net longs and net shorts that are opening up. If we see a big candle that is colored, that means there are longs opening up, and if we see a big gray candle, that means longs are closing. Look, as longs are closing, open interest is going down because people are getting out of trades. Okay? When we see open interest rising, we can see trades are opening, both longs and shorts. Okay? For shorts, the gray candle means shorts are closing. The purple candle means shorts are opening. We're going to get into this more later and how we can use this information to help us trade. And then the VWAP is simply just the volume weighted average price. This is the same exact VWAP that we would have if we were on our Bitcoin chart and we were, if I turn everything off here, we were looking at Market Cipher SR, turn on the VWAP. It's the same exact VWAP, right? It's literally the same exact VWAP. If we go to a 15-minute chart here, this is the VWAP way up here. Come back over here. This is a little bit messed up actually. Let's go to a 15-minute chart. We can see our VWAP is up here. Okay? And that's pretty much how you're going to set up your exo charts. Of course, you know, there's lots of things that we can do here. You know, if we have, for example, just a volume profile and we go to the daily time frame, well, now we've got ourselves a nice volume profile chart that we can use, and we turn off all the text, and we could make a candle a color box. This is the type of chart that I use when I am doing my naked daily point of controls, right? I have a volume profile. I have the value area turned on. You could turn it off so that you don't see it anymore, but I turn it on. I keep my point of controls turned on. This is how you can customize your chart, okay? Whether you want to be doing TPO or volume profile or stuff like that. Alright guys, so this is the introduction to exo charts, to footprint charts. I hope you found this informative. I tried to break it down in the easiest way to understand, and then from here on out we're going to be breaking down exactly how to use this and how to incorporate this into your trading, okay? I incorporate this into my trading alongside using Market Cipher, and it's very, very nice for getting information about the markets that you would have no other way of getting. Alright, God bless, and I'll see y'all in the next session.